Tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey, Doctor Who fans, Whovians, whatever you choose to call yourself, companions maybe, I don't know. However you choose to see yourself.
The Who's down in Whoville.
No, that's just wrong. Not that way. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Welcome back to Doctor Who Classics here at AFTERBUZZ TV. I'm your host, Zach Wilson. Today we are talking about Enemy of the World, the 67-68 episode. We're kind of going backwards in time because we skipped over this episode, and then I watched a little bit of it and was like, oh wait, we should watch this episode.
Like, why did we skip this episode? This one was good.
You know, we have, this is to a bigger question that a lot of fans want to know why we do certain episodes. I'm looking for, when we pick out the episodes, I'm looking for the big ones, and we're going to start being a lot more selective going forward because it's tough when you're going back to these true classics at the very beginning. You want to see them all because they all establish something new. As we move into Doctors 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8's not very complicated. But
well, audio dramas.
But
no,
we're not going to be covering audio dramas.
Well, no, I know.
But God, do I want more of 8.
But that's neither here nor there. So I jumped to Web of Fear, partially because it looked like a fun episode. I'd heard it was good, and also I know that Katie doesn't like spiders.
My usual response to this is not air appropriate.
Which, spiders are not involved in the episode, but I hadn't dug too deep into it before.
So why do we let you choose episodes again?
Because he's the leader.
Because he's the lead host, yeah.
But
why does anybody follow the Doctor? There's not a good reason.
It's
because we're partially intrigued and partially dumb as hell.
But with a name like Web of Fear, you would think spiders were involved.
By the way, who are you people?
I'm Zach Wilson. I think I already introduced myself.
Nope.
I think, whatever, either way.
Anyway.
That's Megan Salinas.
Hi.
And that's Katie Cullen.
Hi, all my buddies.
We're off to a rough start.
That's okay.
But we're off to a rough start with arguably one of the best episodes that we've seen thus far. Yeah. Like, best stories. Because a lot of times there's out of 6 episodes, 4 were really good, and then there were 2 weird ones in the middle where we were just walking.
Or it was a slow beginning.
Every single chapter in this story was so engaging and so interesting and kept you guessing. I can't think of any of these episodes that you could have just tossed and you would have lost something really substantial. There are other Doctor Who, episodes where you could lose 2 or 3 and you wouldn't really lose a whole lot. But this one, everything was important, and it was really cool to see it progress.
And you know what really made it stand out was the fact that over the 6 episodes, it was constantly building on it. Like, it's a classic improv thing you hear, yes, and. Like, yes, it's a weird, crazy world, and we're in Australia, and there's a hovercraft, and there's a crazy plot to, take over the world,
and the Doctor looks just like him.
Exactly.
And you can travel by rocket to get to the other side of the planet in less than 2 hours.
It's
and there's
craziness.
People underground, and they make natural disasters.
We're gonna get to
crazy.
that. Stop getting ahead of ourselves.
Weather control device.
They do.
I mean, in a very big way, this was. I mean, because a lot of Doctor Who episodes are Doctor Who does this, Doctor Who does
that.
Does Bat?
Does this, does that.
Yes, does any kind of a pirate adventure, race adventure, Western. That's the, especially I remember, the season 7 of Modern Who, going out west. It's this is just Doctor Who in the West.
I wear a Stinson now.
Yeah.
Exactly. A Stetson. That's one of my favorite
insert
moments.
Insert catchphrase, insert Doctor, insert episode, move on.
Yeah, and this was very much Doctor Who does Bond.
It's true.
It was a very spy kind of like episode. It was kind of like it was the Prince and the Pauper episode if the prince was a megalomaniacal maniac who wanted to take over the world.
But it's also very much like when we open up, like what are we opening on? Like they get caught
They're running
amongst...
down to the beach.
Oh yeah, okay. So
That was so great.
I want to talk about that because that's so cool. But like talk just to the Bond thing. We opened up on them running into guys with guns being chased, and then they jump in a hovercraft, and then they're mistaking him for a world leader who's got like crazy gadgets and control stuff, and the bunker. Like this is all Bond villain stuff.
Yeah.
And even Kirk, or Giles, was his name Giles Kent? Giles Kent?
Yeah, it was Giles Kent.
Okay, because I think of both of those as last names, and that threw me when they kept calling him different stuff. Probably just because of Giles from Buffy.
Yeah.
But,
who doesn't think of Giles from Buffy?
but even he turns out to be a Bond villain in the end.
Yeah.
That threw me for such a loop. I'll be honest, I did not see that coming.
But so as we talk about this episode, I want to keep coming back to this idea of like, just think about this episode as a Bond movie, and it's so it takes it into a totally other level.
He needs a tux.
Well, he has a weird future suit. I mean,
He kind of wears one already. It just doesn't have a tie involved.
He's a Bond tux.
Nah, I think he's good.
I mean, he's got his own thing going on. Bond has his tuxes. The Doctor's got whatever's going on here. I don't know. But we're in 2018, and the world has gone into chaos.
It's going to be very interesting to watch the next 4 years.
Yeah, we're real close to this. It's good. I mean, all it takes is one nuke, and then we're there.
Yep, there we go.
Then this future comes true.
I'm wondering if the nuclear apocalypse ever actually happened in this future, because they weren't talking about nuclear issues. They were talking about the problem that Salamander solved was famine, that he discovered some way to grow 4 different crops in the same space in the span of a year instead of one crop in that space over a year or over years. And that's why he was getting all this power. The nuclear thing was to keep that particular group of people clueless and underground and doing his bidding.
Yeah, I don't think
the nuclear apocalypse ever happened or was ever close to it.
Mm-hmm. I don't think they ever said the word nukes went off, but there was absolutely a war of some kind that threw the world into chaos, and why the world has been divided into all of these little the
regions.
Yeah, the controller of the Central European zone. No longer countries. This is the Australian zone, or Australasian zone, rather. Who knows how that came to happen? But I like that because it's a little detail that if you explore it, if you dig into it, that meant that Australia somehow got brought into Asia, or they were trading, or somehow they were combined, and then were separated into separate zones post-war. It could have any kind of different.
Mm-hmm. Is it me, or is this not saying that this was a political episode, but is this like the most politics that we've seen in Doctor Who? Because we've seen, obviously, politics at play in Doctor Who before, but this episode, it felt very much, to me, like Game of Thrones, because you have people pitting, people against each other and people vying for power and all sorts of schemes going on. Everyone's got their own agenda.
But we saw that with the cavemen, and we saw that with the Aztecs.
Yeah, but this was good.
Yeah, I know. This was actual good execution of it.
But that's historical stuff, and that's a totally different thing when you're talking about. I mean, we had a little bit of it in the 10th Planet, when they're talking about how to deal with the world and the politics of all those decisions.
It's always been there, kind of in the background, on the back burner. But this is the first time we see politics actively being done, and all the backstabbing that goes into this world, into this brave new world that has been established in the future.
Yeah, at least with what we've seen. We have skipped a number of episodes.
Yeah.
Well, and I get the feeling we'll get more politics once we start getting into more unit.
Yes, once you get locked into a place, once you get locked onto Earth, especially modern day Earth, there's a lot more stuff to do there.
But boy, does it make it easier on the costume department.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not going to get off too easy. There's still plenty of aliens and nonsense to go around.
True, but you don't have to get a whole bunch of Victorian garb for all the people.
Not yet.
No, just military guard for all the unit people, and it's going to be great.
I mean, we still have Victoria running around. You never know when she's going to go in the back to her costume trunk and find her little weird outfits. Like,
yeah, but that's Victoria. That's not every single extra on the set.
Yeah, neither here nor there.
Anyway, we're not there yet. We're here.
Yeah,
We're here. We're in 2018.
We're in this part of time.
I did love the opening frolic.
Yes.
And that was like, you can... Again, you can just see what Matt Smith is building from in this, this doctor that's just like, it's time for some fun.
It was probably the most whimsical we've seen this particular doctor. You know, it's just like, just this chance to be, he's a 500-year-old man, and he just wants to go and play on the beach, because it's the best thing ever.
We've landed at the shore. Yes, but where are we? The shore! Like, does it matter?
Doesn't matter where we are.
See if you can find shovels and pails. Is he digging for earthworms? I think he wants us to play sandcastles.
There might be some radioactivity in the water. Who cares? If it's actually our 2018, there is.
I just love that it's Jamie and Victoria being like, we're the responsible adults here, and that guy is running around in the water in his skivvies. All right.
I mean,
when did that happen?
You know, I think it might be partially... I have to think that the writers at the time were thinking post-regeneration, he does have a sort of mental reset. Not memory reset, because obviously he still remembers everything, but, and this is different, obviously, as we've moved forward with 11 and 12 and 13 doctors with an asterisk. But this it was sort of a reset. He got a lot younger, so he's behaving like a young man because he lived one life, and now he's living a second. So it just has the memories, but it's a new person. Now, as we get into more change, once you have to like take that to a new place, you can't just go young again. Mm-hmm. You have to change it and bend it and do all kinds of different things. But I have to imagine that that's sort of the reasoning behind Troughton's doctor being so just fun-loving and like childish.
He's a blast.
And I think part of that, too, is just the fact that that's just kind of what you can do when you cast a younger actor. Because William Hartnell, as endearing as he was, he's not going to be able to run around the beach and play. You know,
no, but he did still have fun with stuff.
Yeah,
it was so much...
No, he still had that very, you know... that wonderfully endearing grin. You definitely have fun, but he's not going to jump into the ocean if he doesn't have to.
You're really
wasn't nearly as mobile.
Yeah, you're really excited grandpa.
Yeah.
As opposed to Troughton, who's your really excited uncle.
Yeah, there you go.
Or that like weird adult that you just hang out with because they're fun.
He's like your dad's best friend from high school or something.
Yeah, I mean, the trio of people that we have right now on the show is a blast because they're so diverse in terms of like their attitude. Victoria, very sort of, I'm gonna wait back and see what happens. So that Victorian England, like, I don't
just from
know
the era that she's from,
yeah. Jamie, like, very much like he's this show's action hero by all accounts.
He's Scottish.
Yeah, he's ready. He's gonna jump in the doctors, just like the fun. He's just like, well,
he's just this big kid.
This is cool. What are we gonna do now?
And what I love about their dynamic is that we see this again in this episode. They really trust each other. They don't even have to be on the same continent to work together. Like, okay, you guys go do the thing. I completely trust that you will get the thing done, and I will be over here doing this thing, and you completely trust me to do this thing. And it works.
And how well they know each other. Like, the part that really stuck out to me was when the doctor was pretending to be someone else, and then stops pretending, and the way that he can, you know, just the way that he proves that he's actually him. It was just so fun. And they're like, oh,
miming playing the recorder. Because he has that recorder everywhere. That's his thing. But Jamie made him leave it in the TARDIS.
It's a sonic
Didn't want to
recorder.
get it wet, I guess.
They didn't have sonic screwdrivers yet, so he had a sonic recorder. The first Doctor had a sonic flashlight. It just had one setting.
High beams.
The TARDIS regenerated this flashlight into a recorder.
It's like, well, it doesn't light anything up, but...
Less useful, more fun.
But speaking to the fact that they are very much like on an agreement and a wavelength, when they send Jamie and Victoria off to play spy. The Doctor isn't really the spy in this show.
No.
That's totally not his... at least any Doctor that I'm familiar with, which really I have a huge gap in the middle, is not the type to go in and play like subtle spy. Like nothing about the Doctor is ever subtle.
No.
Which is, it's probably a good thing that the person he's mimicking is so strong a personality, because if the person he was mimicking was kind of quiet and subtle and didn't show anything, he would have a terrible time. But he's this very loud, bombastic, emphatic sort of man, so of course the Doctor can do that.
I mean, and it fits, but I just mean the idea of sending Jamie and Victoria off.
Oh yeah,
they are so comfortable with each other, this trio, that the Doctor's gone from I'm not going to let you do anything to, all right, go find evidence that this guy's as bad as these people say he is, and then we'll go from there. And they go off, and Jamie does this a pretty good job. I love the little scheme of that they came up with. Oh no, it's a bomb! Throw it! Explosion from somewhere else. But it works. It's a great ploy. Because he could grab anything. He could like throw a bush over the wall and then it explodes.
You're like, wow, how did we miss that?
It would have been really funny if he threw like a pie. Although I guess you have the food taster.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. I believe her name was Faria.
Yeah.
Faria. Faria. It was something like
Faria?
that.
Yeah, I like this episode is all the side characters were very intriguing. I loved Astrid. She was great. Giles was really interesting, even up until the end when you find out what his true motives are. He was interesting. Faria, I really wish we had more on her, because
I want to know her backstory.
She was one of the most interesting aspects of this particular episode, because she did something. She was a political enemy of this guy. And much like he used the other guy, whose name I can't remember, much like he manipulated him to make it look like he was an embezzler, he had something on her and was blackmailing her and was doing it in a very humiliating way. Like, she had to smile when he said so. I wanted to know exactly what she did. I wanted to know. And just the fact that she wanted revenge. She was tired of it. She was ready to go back and get back at him. I found her intriguing as hell. And we got nothing from that.
Yeah, I mean, well, you want to talk about somebody, but what that says that's so great is that you can have a character. You always want to have more from your side characters. That's what you should be. You should... Excuse me. Okay. You should see a side character and say, I want to know your whole story. Mm-hmm. Every character, especially in something like this, should have their own stories. Every one of these people should feel like a fully fleshed out character. We didn't need more from her story to understand where she was coming from. Mm-hmm. We knew that she came from a belittled... Like, she was the worst kind of servant. Like, she's literally being forced to put herself... It's as if you're using her as a bulletproof shield every day. It's like your only job is to protect me, to stand in front of me in case somebody fires a bullet.
Essentially, yeah.
Although she probably tastes some pretty good food.
Yeah, but would you really think it's worth it at that point?
Well, and he's belittling her every chance he gets. You know, he's like, she was hungry, so I gave her a job, although now that she has to test my food, she's lost her appetite. You know, like, just all the little jabs. Like, clearly she did something to really get on his bad side, and I really wanted to know what that was. And as upset as I was that they killed off the only black character in this episode,
yeah,
I really loved that as a character, she wasn't just the black character. She was a person. She was fully formed, and I really wanted to know more about her. I thought she was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, well, as long as we're on the topic, let's talk about it now. I was gonna save it till the end, but like let's discuss it now.
There's a little bit to talk about. Yeah.
We talk about on this show a lot, and I know that some people get frustrated with us about it, but this is part of what we're doing here, is we're looking at classic Who from a modern perspective. Like, somebody that's grown up with modern Who is like what we understand of it, and just the modern world. Going back and watching stuff in the 60s, you get a very different worldview. It just was different at the time. The way that media portrayed everything was different, and it's worth discussing the differences.
Yeah, you have to look at the social context of the time.
Now, obviously, there's a mostly white cast, but that's just television at the time. Her character, I was worried at first when they bring her in as a servant, oh, this is going to be another flat African British, I guess, character who's not going to have a lot to do, but they gave her plenty to do. They made her a very positive, very strong character.
And just to bounce off of that and also talk a little bit about gender portrayals in this episode, her and Astrid both showed a tremendous amount of agency and really well-developed character, and that this episode knocked out of the park. Like, they were two of my favorites.
Well, if Jamie's the action hero of his trio, then Astrid is the action hero of her cast. Because she just didn't care. It was like, okay, we're going to have a distraction, and I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to beat him up and run outside, and you play dead.
Yeah, she did so much fighting. She's a pilot. You know, she comes
smart.
up with all these cool schemes and everything like that. She's not just a Bond girl. You know, she would be the main character,
Yeah,
I feel like.
Like, you could, if you're applying the Bond metaphor, like, you could say that Giles is Bond and she's the Bond girl, but I would say no. Giles is closer to being like an M, and she's Bond.
Yeah. He would be an evil M, and she's Bond, exactly.
We just drop our characters into it in the middle, like getting in the way.
And that's kind of something I really like about this episode, too, is it feels very much like our characters just plopped into another movie. And a lot of other episodes don't feel like that. It takes a little bit more time to get going before the ball really gets rolling.
Like the Yeti.
Like, the Doctor has to get there before the story starts, and that wasn't the case here. Here it was like, I wonder what's going on. People are shooting at us.
Here, the Doctor is the plot twist in the existing story.
Yeah, if you're looking at it from their perspective, like, oh, we got to stop this bad guy. Wait, this dude that looks just like our enemy fell out of the sky.
Which, since
we are going to use the hell out of this.
Not to get off topic again, but since we were talking about Salamander, let's go ahead and talk about Salamander. The whole big thing in this episode is that Patrick Troughton is playing both roles as the Doctor and as Salamander, which makes sense because otherwise how would this whole, Prince and the Pauper scheme work?
Yeah.
The thing about that is that I don't know if they said exactly where he's from, but he's definitely from, I think at one point he said in Mexico, we call it. So he's definitely Mexican or maybe Central American, something along those lines, and he's being played by Patrick Troughton. And
who's not Mexican?
No, but here's the thing, and I have to defend it strongly. I don't find this, and granted, I'm not I'm white. Like, I'm just gonna say it. But I would defend this as not racist because you've set this storyline at the time 60 years in the future, roughly. Is it 50 or you set it far in the future? And you've also divided the world massively under completely new countries and zones. Yeah. People theoretically moved around a lot. All you've done is you've taken a guy who has they gave him a little bit of a tan, but it wasn't like he was in blackface. They didn't put him in a sombrero or something offensive. They darkened.
He rules the world from his sombrero.
You could
give him a little evil castanets,
and I will kill you.
You've given him a slight tan, but you could easily see that in 60 years, if we were talking today about 2080 or 2070, let's say, you could easily say that racially people could look very different, and somebody could be very Hispanic and have a deep Brooklyn accent. Like that can happen.
Well, that happens now.
And but you wouldn't say that that's like being like stereotypical or anything. It's just that's the reality of the world, and the reality of the world that they've fallen into is that this guy who has is either from Mexico or has this foreign accent just happens to look at that because of however his birthing has gone over the decades.
And the thing is that if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty actual definitions of the term, being Mexican or Hispanic or Latino, it's not considered a race. If you were to put it down and look at it on a census, they don't define any of those as like a particular race. They're defined as ethnicities. And anybody of that ethnicity, there is a race spectrum. You have people who look like me, who are like kind of brown, who are light brown, and then you have people who are really dark, and then you have people who are really light. And a lot of times, and there's a lot of racism within that, like in that own culture, like people who are white, who appear more white, are more likely to get jobs on TV and things like that. There's a lot of prejudice even within those spectrums. So yes, this Patrick Troughton, there is very obviously there are people who are Hispanic who look white and everything like that, who are blonde and white and everything like that. I'm not saying that. It's just the fact that you're taking this guy who's obviously not Hispanic and you're casting him as a Hispanic role. I thought he did a very marvelous job acting the part. Do I think it makes it 100% right for him to be playing it at all? Not entirely, but again, context of the time, you do. And again, it's a concession of the story, so whatever. But they could have made this guy go from anywhere, and I'm kind of torn on it because again, just kind of the world they're setting up is very interesting. Just the fact that somebody like that could rise to power, it says a lot about the world that they're in. Like, people wouldn't have a problem with that. Having somebody of color rise to power like that. That's fine. But again, I do have a little bit of an issue with it, but it wasn't enough to make me hate this episode.
So it worked well on a story level, but on a meta level, it was iffy.
Yeah, very much so. And you can attribute that 100% to the time that this was made. But, I mean, we still see stuff like that in, in this day and age. We still see things, people doing things that they really shouldn't be doing. Some celebrities still go out, for Halloween in blackface. It's really
still see Benedict Cumberbatch playing Khan. Ta-da!
He's a great actor.
He's a great actor, but he shouldn't have been in that role.
Well, we won't get into that.
Yeah,
that's a whole other thing.
No one can replace Ricardo Montalban.
But I guess that's what I'm saying is, and it's a similar argument to that, is that, like, if you're going to just approach this as we have this storyline, in this storyline, our title character happens to look like this character who is of Hispanic descent. And I think focusing too much and like worrying too much about he's not Hispanic, he's not Indian. Thank you.
We know what you were getting at.
Yeah,
yes.
Is putting that at the front as opposed to just taking like this character and this person just happened to match up, and then we stick a foreign accent on him, and as long as it's not a overtly stereotypical accent, it's not like they had Cumberbatch like talking with a fake Indian voice or anything.
Oh, that would have hurt.
But like
already did.
All you've done is put a character and a person into this slot of a role.
Honestly, I like what you're saying with that. I like what you're doing with that, and I would agree with you because I like the idea of the best actor for the role is the one who gets the part. The difference is that I will say 9 times out of 10, that is the excuse for giving a role to a white actor as opposed to another actor, except for when you give Idris Elba the part of George Washington.
I can't wait for that movie. I'd say the difference here is
we're gonna have a
Salamander.
talk about whatever that is.
Khan was a character that was initially and famously played by. Help me.
Ricardo Montalban.
Yes, his ethnicity. He was
don't know. He's Hispanic Latino. I don't know exactly where
Hispanic
he's from.
Character was supposed to be Indian, but that was the best we could do because racism, casting, etc. And then they recast him for the reboot as a white man. The issue there is that he was a very prominent person of color and was whitewashed. For here, Salamander was not initially something else, and then there was a remake, and he didn't have that history behind him, so it's not quite as egregious. It's still an issue, but it's not, he was a character of color and you took that from us. It's, okay.
Yeah, again,
passable but still problematic.
There, I think that's a good way of putting it. It's passable, but it still has an issue or two. And chances are, if you have to ask yourself, is this right? There's probably an issue with that.
There's
and for
probably
me,
a reason it's not.
It's kind of like when you ask, is this racist? Chances are, if you have to ask that question, it probably is, at least to some degree. It might not be as bad as something else, but just the fact that you ask yourself that question, it signals that something is not right.
Yeah, I guess for me, the way it shapes up, the way it looks is, as long as there's a story reason for the fact that this person looks like Patrick Troughton.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question, though.
Yeah.
If this had been in color, would you feel the same? If this had been in color and you could see that it was like a bad makeup job.
If you could see that, what was the
Spray tan.
Or if he looked like he was spray tanned or something
it would make me laugh and it would be weird, but there's a good example of that, and it was the last Wachowski brothers movie. The name escapes me. The one with Tom Hanks. It was a book adaptation.
Cloud
Atlas.
Cloud Atlas, thank you.
Oh,
They did a lot of that, where because the whole idea was that this is the same person being like the same
Reincarnated.
spirit into
Yeah.
different roles, and they literally took white people and put enough makeup and prosthesis
CG.
on them and CG to make them look Asian or make Asian actors look white. And it was sort of just like the story, this needs to be what the story is about, is that this is the same person. And it was really weird to look at.
I was going to say, that still sounds kind of racist.
But the thing is, it was visually bizarre, but it wasn't racist because it's not setting out to offend anyone, and it's not playing to any stereotypes. All it
That
is
doesn't make
saying,
it not racist.
No,
Anyway, continue.
I strongly disagree, because you're putting too much emphasis on the fact that this person is of that race. If you're just looking at this as people, a Hispanic person and a white person who happen to look similarly, and the only difference for them is a slight shade in their pigment. It's not we didn't put somebody in blackface. We didn't make them look entirely different, like with something really horribly stereotypical. It was a slight makeup job.
So even if this was in color, you wouldn't have a problem with it?
I wouldn't have a problem with it as long as we're not we're not doing like mariachi bands, or like we're not calling him lazy. We're not doing anything like that. We're with an offensive term. None of that's being said. We're not saying anything like that. It's purely a visual to what he looks like.
I will say, just because you're not meaning to offend somebody or you're not meaning to be racist, it doesn't mean you're not inherently being racist just because it's something you don't have to see or deal with. But
and that's a great point, and I think let's leave it there.
Yeah, I agree. But I liked this discussion, and I like that we can have it without getting mad or like throwing anything across the table.
I don't know.
Never.
I don't have anything to throw except a mug, and that's a little extreme.
Sorry, I threw a pen just because you said throw stuff, and I had
Now,
a pen.
if our commenters could do just the same thing
And
be
not
just
throw
as
things
civil,
at us.
that would be super.
And notice I didn't throw it at anybody. I threw it past you guys.
Either that
You
or-
threw it at the engineer. He's over there like, oh
I
God,
think
why?
I have to
this
clean
is
that up later.
I think this is enough of a good point to just take a break and talk to you guys about iTunes. And thank you guys so much for listening. We're going to get away from all of what we was just having, because this is a fun show and we want to have fun. We also want to get into the serious stuff, but the reason that we can have these conversations is because you guys help support us, not just on this show, but all the shows here at AFTERBUZZ TV. And it means the world to us that you listen, but also we want to know that you can help us out. You can help us keep the lights on. Podcasting is a new industry. We need all the support we can get so that AFTERBUZZ can find sponsors, so that new listeners can find us. And the best way that you can do that is to go onto iTunes, hit the subscribe button. If you're watching it on YouTube, just head over there and hit subscribe. It doesn't hurt anybody, and it helps us out a whole lot. And if you got time, hit us with a review. It only takes like 30 seconds. You go on there, leave a 5-word review. I challenge you. What do you think of this show in 5 words or less? Those are the reviews I want to be able to read next week on the podcast. And you'll get a shout out. But I'll forgive you. If you want to have 6+ words, those are fine too.
Here's one to start you off. I love all the hosts. Ta-da!
I dislike the hosts.
Oh,
That's 5 syllables. That's not 5 words. That's 5 syllables. This isn't a haiku.
It's actually 4 words.
That's 4
so
words.
I was
That's 5
less.
syllables. You are under.
And I didn't say syllables. I said words. Anyway,
You did say words.
these are the kind of particulars. All the silliness, I thought was a great point in the middle of this whole episode. We got Griff or Griffin.
I love
chef.
Griff.
chef.
The chef is the
It was
best
this
human being.
bizarre comic relief in the middle of a storyline about a very
Disgruntled.
bad and it's a very bad guy who's trying to take over the world with murder and deception, and there's his cook is this silly British man who just is everything I cook is terrible, I'm gonna get executed probably.
Hell, at least my troubles will be over.
First course, late. Second course, inedible. Third course, interrupted by revolutionaries. Fourth course, the level of cares he gives is in the negative. He just doesn't care. But he cooks well enough that no one says anything.
He's a great addition, and what it does is it brings this episode to life, because it could get very flat playing this Bond game with evil villains and sci-fi twists and all that. But he brings just a change of pace that you need in any 3-hour-long story.
Just that nice little degree of levity, but it also tells you a lot, because it makes you laugh as a viewer, but it also tells you a lot about the world that they're living in, because obviously we know about all this political intrigue going on behind the curtain, but we don't really know what the day-to-day of that is like, and this guy knows exactly what that's like and can poke fun at it in a macabre sort of way because he has to live with it every day.
It also kind of humanizes the stormtroopers in a way. You look at that and you go, well, he's working for the bad guy, but he's not a bad guy. In much the same way that our head of security was less, I'm evil and abuse my power, and more, I'm Javert. So,
I mean, our head of security was very much just I'm doing my job. This guy is ostensibly doing the world a great service by helping to save us from famine. Why would I stop you? Why wouldn't I help him do what he can do?
Yeah.
And
he's lawful good. And when it turns out that the person he's working for is more neutral evil, he winds up going against him because you work for good.
He's a good, honest man.
He's Javert.
And the chef is just whatever, I'm a cook. And it's maybe they'll shoot me, then I won't have to worry anymore. He's the best. It's so much fun, and it's that little morose, dark humor is exactly what a story like this needs.
Oh, yeah.
And I love it. And as we transition off this topic, hit one of my favorite lines from him. No, I'll leave. I'm only the chef. It was really good.
Bouncing off Victoria was great.
Maybe that wasn't actually in the script. Maybe the actor himself was just fed up and just decided to leave the set.
I always wonder when you have what lines were improv. It's impossible to know, because some of the best ones, they're improv in another situation and they just get brought in, so they really feel scripted, but they're not. It's always fun. But so let's talk about the big twist in this episode, the bunker.
Yeah.
I'd say that was one of 2 big twists and then a crazy stinger at the end.
Well, okay, so the 2 big twists, I guess, for you guys, were the bunker and then Kent being bad.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I watch so much television, but from 20 minutes into the second episode, I was like, oh, Kent's gonna be a bad guy.
Well, I feel stupid again, because last week I was saying I didn't see that coming, and this week I have to say the same thing because I didn't see that coming. But if you look back at all those episodes, all the groundwork is there, because you can tell Giles has a personal vendetta against Salamander, and
he straight up says he has a personal vendetta.
And
he
which makes us want to trust him because he's being honest with us.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a nugget of the truth.
Yes.
It's not the whole truth. The Doctor from the get-go hesitant to trust this guy because his immediate, response is murder is the best way to take care of Salamander, and so the Doctor is wary to trust him. Whereas, if you watch a lot of like war movies or whatever, you're like, oh, okay, this is just war for them. They're revolutionaries. Okay, no big deal. In terms of like what they plan on doing, I didn't think anything of it. And so I had the rug completely pulled out from under me when it turned out he was in league with Salamander. I was like, oh, well, I'm dumb.
Well, same here. And I also watched these episodes piecemeal. I did 2 and 2 and 2 with hours and sometimes days between them. So there were definitely things in the first few episodes where it was like, oh, they laid the groundwork for that in the episodes I watched 2 days ago. Right.
Well, I mean, and normally people would have a week between. They'd watch these stories over 6 weeks.
Would you have
But they'd also
anticipated
discuss them more, I think, between the weeks.
Yeah. Would you anticipate it if these episodes had been sparsed out, a week in between each one over the course of 6 weeks?
Well, what set me off on it was not like I wasn't looking at anything specific like that. I guess it was the sense that he just seemed to not. There were details missing from his story. Like he didn't have any evidence, but
he still wanted to just kill the guy.
Yeah, and that felt like there was a big chunk that it always felt like there was a piece of his story missing, and the only reason you hide a piece of your story is when you're bad. It's also just from a story perspective, like this was for a 3-hour-long storyline. Like I knew that there was going to be a twist coming, and that one just felt very available.
Yeah, no, and it was good, and it makes complete and total sense why they wouldn't be able to gather enough evidence, because that would in turn implicate him as well.
So did you doubt yourself when the first twist that came up was the bunker?
No, I actually had just forgotten about it at that point because I was having so much fun with the bunker storyline. Like it wasn't that I completely forgot that concept that he was going to twist. I don't think I ever changed my mind. I think I always assumed he would be a bad guy. But and again, that's not to say that that's a bad twist by any means. Just because I guessed it doesn't mean it was bad. It's just because of how much time I spent here at AFTERBUZZ. I've seen, and again, when you're talking about stuff from the 60s, I think that because modern stuff, not just Who, but everything, has been influenced by this to the point where this classic story is what was new at the time. Today is like, oh, the guy we thought was good is bad. Okay.
Never seen that before.
I do have to say that when he first goes down to the bunker, when Salamander first goes down there, for a solid minute, I thought that they might give him some depth in terms of oh, maybe he has a good reason for doing all of the things that he's doing up on the surface.
Yeah.
For a solid minute, and then they completely dash that with, nope, he's just power hungry.
And these are the people who are making the earthquakes. Oh, you're not altruistic. You're just a jerk.
Yeah, it was, but because it takes a really tough, it takes a really good writer, and all credit to David Whittaker, who's at this point, this is what, season 5 or 6?
I think it's season 5.
This is 5. He's been on the show since season 1. So he's a Doctor Who veteran at this point. This is some skilled. It takes skilled writing to have a twist that comes completely out of left field, but feels like it has always been there and makes total sense.
Yeah.
There was never they didn't harp on the national or natural disasters. It was a factor, but we glossed over it. We didn't think about it.
We figured future technology.
Yeah, we just figured natural disasters happen, especially during maybe it's more so today when it feels like because the news can report on it all. There's always a natural disaster somewhere. There are terrible things happening that's no one's fault somewhere in the world.
Exactly.
Well, and they laid the groundwork so subtly that we didn't realize they were laying it until they built the whole building on top of it, and then had an earthquake and knocked it down.
But it was a great twist.
Yeah.
I loved and even in that little bunker, we got all kinds of little nuggets of like these characters and what they've been going through. We got Mary and I think it was Colin.
Colin, yeah.
The two kids who are like, I just want to see the surface.
Is it me?
I want to be where the people are.
I was also thinking a little bit, I want to see the world beyond the wall.
And out there.
Insert whatever Disney song you want here.
The Disney I Want song. 90% of them fit there.
I love the part where they like the proof that they get is like the tiniest little slip, and like was nobody curious? Like it wasn't like he was finding canned goods up on the surface or like vegetables or something. Like he brought milk. He brought milk back, and it was like, don't worry about the radiation, guys. It's totally fine.
I like that it was a carton that said milk, and if he really is doing it all himself, then he's actually getting a carton and putting
like that
penciling
implies.
in milk.
Or that's what came from the catering.
Yeah, I know, but like to them, that would be what he was doing.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, because theoretically the world is in turmoil and he has to just find food. Like that looks
He's
like
foraging.
he went down
Yeah.
to the town dairy and picked up a case of milk.
He's foraging and he found a Costco.
And also milk. If there's radiation everywhere, the cow's probably infected and the cow's probably real sick.
Yeah.
Although maybe again it's the sick.
Or it's
so.
a super cow.
They can fix it with his special anti-radiation machine.
Which the ruler is filled with radiation.
But again,
That was pretty great.
it's that situation of like there's somebody leading you, and that person is telling you this is the way the world is. Mm-hmm. You have no reason to doubt him.
It's a little bit Plato's allegory of the den, almost literally, because these are people who have not seen the surface in years.
Oh,
and
the cave.
Of the cave. Here's
Yeah.
the shadows on the wall. And they're just like, okay. And one guy's like, but what's making the shadows? Shh, watch the shadows.
Now I have to kill you, just like the other guys who asked that question.
Yeah, in this case, he literally just takes him up to the cavern and whacks him on the back of the head with a conveniently
Which-
lead pipe.
And I mean,
Salamander in the tunnel with the lead pipe.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I mean, on the one hand, I understand that these people, they're living in fear and they wouldn't have any idea what's going on in the world, and they theoretically wouldn't have any reason to mistrust Salamander. But if like 3 guys in a row go up with him and none of them make it back, but Salamander is always okay, that says something. Like, it really takes to the 4th guy and somebody else coming down the tunnel for people to be suspicious.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask a question in regards to Salamander and we got to wrap up in a
sorry.
minute.
Can we at least talk about the last 2 minutes at some point?
Yes, we will in our last 2 minutes.
Okay.
Engineer Josh, make sure you signal me when we're running low. I just want to ask a question because I think that the Doctor is asking it a lot in this episode. How evil does a man have to be before it is justified to kill him? Because in the Doctor's mind, especially in this episode, it's not justified. Killing is never justified.
Yeah. In the Doctor's own mind, there's like he never wants violence to be the answer. He doesn't see killing anyone. And we see this for a long time with the Doctor. He doesn't ever want blood on his hands. He will abandon someone, at a point in time. He'll tamper with their TARDIS. He'll trap them in a mirror. He'll do all sorts of things, but he won't kill them.
He just believes in fates worse than death sometimes. Because, wow, some of those were...
Some of them were pretty unpleasant and arguably inhumane, but I mean, he's living by his own code, and I can understand completely where he's coming from, not wanting to literally and metaphorically get blood on your hands.
Mm-hmm. It's a tough call, and it's like it raises similar questions to like when you find yourself like. Let's kill Hitler.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I mean, just the Hitler metaphor is the classic one of like, if you can go back and kill Hitler, do you? As a kid, if you can go back and kill Hitler as a child, is it worth it?
How
Maybe.
could you ever know?
You can't.
Time paradox.
Yeah.
You going back and trying to kill Hitler would cause him to become Hitler.
You're the reason he got kicked out of art school.
It very well, and like this is the kind of philosophical debate that I love that Doctor Who raises, and we could go on forever about, but we don't have time because I do want to talk about the ending where we finally get Salamander and the Doctor in the same room when they like they think that it's just the Doctor who is like phased from the blast or whatever, and they bring Salamander into the TARDIS.
The fact that Salamander was savvy enough not only to go, okay, well, this guy's been imitating me for a while, let's turn the tables, and then being able to do it just by acting like he was shell-shocked. He had them pretty well strung along.
I mean, we want to just call him like an evil like guy and all that, but he is
smart.
At this point he's showing that he's very smart and you could even say that he's the Doctor's equal.
He couldn't keep the act up for very long. He doesn't know the Doctor well enough, and he doesn't have anyone helping him out, in much the same way the Doctor had people saying, you need to sound like this and you need to know this.
The Doctor had an entire video watching this guy, the way he spoke and his mannerisms and everything like that. He had that to work off of. Even when he didn't, have a whole lot of time to prep, he had at least some basis of comparison. This guy had absolutely nothing to go off of except for, oh, that's a guy that looks like me. I don't know what he sounds like. I don't know what he acts like.
But he knows enough instantly to know the instant I open my mouth, it's done. So I have to just find a play that I don't talk in. And he gets on the ship, and luckily the Doctor shows up when he does.
They almost took off without him.
But that moment where Salamander is like right over the Doctor's face.
That was a very impressive effect for the time. I don't know how long we just, in terms of special effects, have been able to do that split screen.
I mean, at this point, it would literally be like putting two pieces of film on top of each other.
Yeah, but I don't know when the first example of that was, but this was definitely very well done.
It was. I mean, this is like sort of class. They've been doing this since silent film era, like right in the beginning, like wind-ups. It's just superimposing two images onto the same piece of celluloid. But they do it in just the right way so that you feel it. You feel that presence of the threatening Salamander to the Doctor, who doesn't know what to do because he's somewhat sort of for the first time, he's fighting somebody who is on the same level as him.
Yeah.
He's been in situations where he's not totally in control, but this is a person who is intellectually on to some extent his equal. Maybe not so far, maybe not the 2,000-year-old man version that we have now, but this version, this younger Doctor, very much he's met his equal.
Well, there's a reason Salamander nearly took over the world.
Yeah. This is a guy. Yeah, he took over the. This is a guy who took over the world, or nearly did at least. Like he got real close.
How did he not have an evil goatee?
Because that trope hadn't been established yet.
Okay, fair enough.
That's true. He did have a nice mustache though, didn't he?
No,
he didn't.
No, because he looked exactly like the Doctor, and the Doctor isn't
true.
They both have bushy eyebrows, though.
Maybe his eyebrows in my mind just sort of migrated.
Honestly,
that's
because
creepy.
we know he's evil, you were probably just picturing him with a
mustache.
With a snidely
whiplash. Exactly right. So the Doctor did very much meet somebody who was threatening because he's on the same level, and that's going to lead us into what we're going to talk about next week. When we talk about the Mind Robber, the Master's appearance.
Are you kidding?
I'm pretty sure that's what's happening.
Well, the commenters are either going to be like, yeah, or like, no. So,
yeah,
so we'll see.
But yeah, so the Mind Robber next week, guys. But that's going to do it for us here at AfterBuzz TV on Classic Doctor Who. Megan Salinas. If people want to keep up with you until then, where can they find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at TheMenguin. That's TheMenguin. I'm also on a bunch of shows here at AfterBuzz.
I'm Katie Cullen. You can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram at Kiaxet. That's Kiaxet. I'm also on Arrow, which is having its mid-season finale tonight.
And you guys can follow me on Twitter at @ZachWilson, ThatZachWilson, and a ton of shows here at AfterBuzz. Coming up next week, Ascension, which I'll be doing with Megan Salinas over here. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is up. Agent Carter comes back in January, as does Helix. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Zach Wilson, and thanks for geeking out with us.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.